The Canadian Music Scene. Chapter 1. Canadian Music Info. Canadian Music Info. The music of Canada has been shaped by Americans, Indigenous peoples, the Irish, British, the French and other ethnic groups including Asian music on the West Coast. Music is taught in schools. Many children learn instruments through the school. The Canadian music industry is the sixth largest in the world. There's a live music scene in every city. The national anthem is O Canada, that was written in 1880 for a Saint Jean-Baptiste Day ceremony. Calixa Lavallée wrote the music to a poem by Sir Adolphe Basile Routhier. The text was originally only in French before it was adapted into English in 1906. I remember singing The Maple Leaf Forever as a kid. They created a cool Canada song for Expo 67, Canada, the Centennial Song, in 1967 by Bobby Jimby, sung by the young Canadian singers. You can find it on youtube.com. The song represents a simpler, more optimistic time. As far as anyone knows, the Indigenous people sang and used drums. The English and French brought their music traditions with them to Canada. Of course, the church is big. There is church music for mass, religious music, and choirs. As colleges and universities developed, they had music programs which produced choral and classical music. Guy Lombardo, 1902–1977, was a big band star with his band the Royal Canadians. In 1936, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation came into existence. This is the government-funded radio-TV empire that promotes Canadian culture. Randy Bachman of Bachman Turner Overdrive and Guess Who, a 70s rock band, hosted the show Vinyl Tap on CBC Radio from 2005 until 2021, which was a 1-hour weekly show where he dissected different songs, albums, and styles. The 1950s would see pop vocal and doo-wop groups the Four Lads, Crew Cuts, and Diamonds score several hits internationally. The Crew Cuts would become famous with their covers of doo-wop hits like SH Boom and Earth Angel, while the Diamonds would do the same with Little Darlin', Why Do Fools Fall in Love, Silhouettes and The Stroll. US-born rockabilly pioneer Ronnie Hawkins moved to Canada in 1958, where he became a key player in the Canadian blues and rock scene. The 4th of October was declared Ronnie Hawkins Day by the City of Toronto when Hawkins was inducted into Canada's Walk of Fame. The first Canadian rock band, as opposed to a vocal group like the Crew Cuts and Diamonds, to score an international hit were the Beaumarks with Clap Your Hands in 1960. Gordon Lightfoot was on a TV show called Sing-Along Jubilee in the 1960s. Other Canadian musical shows are Don Messer's Jubilee, The Pig and Whistle, The Tommy Hunter Show, The Ian Tyson Show and The Bobby Vinton Show. As far as I know, Burton Cummings still lives somewhere around Winnipeg and Moose Jaw. He was a massive pop star at one time, could have lived anywhere. He chose the Great White North. Leonard Cohen was a Canadian singer. Joni Mitchell is a 70s pop folk singer. Successful Canadian musical acts are Anne Murray, Guess Who, Steppenwolf, Lighthouse, The Stampeders, Rush, Triumph, Shania Twain, Alanis Morissette, Celine Dion, Avril Lavigne, Nelly Furtado, Terry Jacks, The Poppy Family, The Bells, April Wine, Loverboy, Sam Moon, and Bryan Adams. Canadian musicians are members of prominent American pop bands like Denny Doherty of the Mamas and the Papas and Neil Young of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. On January 18, 1971, regulations came into force requiring AM radio stations to devote 30% of their musical selections to Canadian content. In 2010, Canada introduced copyright legislation that makes hacking digital music illegal, but gives music buyers the right to copy their music onto portable devices. Canadian mix with Americans in the music industry. Americans go to Canada and Canadians go to America to further their musical careers. The Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences presents Canada's Music Awards, the Juno, which have been going on since 1970. Canada has specific music awards, both for different genres and for geographic regions. CASPI awards Canada's annual Independent and Alternative Music Awards. Canadian Country Music Awards, Canada's annual country music industry awards. GMA Canada Covenant Awards, Canada's national awards for the gospel music industry. East Coast Music Awards, annual music appreciation for the East Coast of Canada. Felix Awards, annual prize for members of the Quebec music industry. Canadian Folk Music Awards, annual ceremony for achievements in folk and world music. Much Music Video Awards, Canada's annual music video awards. Polaris Music Prize Award, annually given to the best full-length Canadian album based on artistic merit. Prism Prize annual award for achievements in music video. Canadian Urban Music Awards, Canada's annual Urban Music Awards. Canadian Aboriginal Music Awards, Canada's annual appreciation for the promoters, creators, and performers of Aboriginal music. Western Canadian Music Awards, annual music appreciation for the western part of Canada. Most people don't know that several American pop stars are actually Canadian, like Paul Anka, Neil Young, Andy Kim, and Shania Twain. Prominent Canadian musicians recently are Michael Bublé, Drake, The Weeknd, Nickelback, Shawn Mendes, and Justin Bieber. If you type Toronto music or Toronto rap into a search engine, you'll see how big the contemporary music scene is. The local music is incredible. There are many good folk and pop musicians. They just don't have the infrastructure to get international press. Celine Dion got lucky because her late husband René Angelo worked very hard to promote her. The TV show Canada's Got Talent at youtube.com/@KangoTTalent. Lot of music acts. The Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Canadian Musicalhallofame.ca. At Studio Bell, home of the National Music Centre. Level 5 of Studio Bell in Calgary, epub. 854 Street SE. StudioBell.ca. A list of Canadian 1980s pop stars at liveabout.com/Canadian-pop-artists-the-80s-10663. Aldo Nova. Bryan Adams. Corey Hart. Glass Tiger. Honeymoon Suite. Lawrence Gowan. Loverboy. Saga. The Kings. The Pursuit of Happiness. Triumph. Best Canadian Musicians at rollingstone.com/music/music-lists/best-Canadian-musicians-12347792020. Alanis Morissette. Alessia Cara. Alves. Anne Murray. April Wine. Arcade Fire. Avril Lavigne. Barenaked Ladies. Broken Social Scene. Bryan Adams. Buffy St. Marie. Carly Rae Jepsen. Celine Dion. DOA. Daniel Caesar. Destroyer. Feist. Gordon Lightfoot. Hank Snow. Joni Mitchell. Justin Bieber. K.D. Lang. Leonard Cohen. Loverboy. Martha and the Muffins. Metric. Neil Young. Nelly Furtado. New Pornographers. Party Next Door. Peaches. Richie Hawtin. Rush. Sarah McLachlan. Shania Twain. Shawn Mendes. Sloan. Snow. Spandex. Sum 41. Tegan and Sarah. The Band. The Guess Who. The Tragically Hip. The Weeknd. Canadian concert and festival listings. SeatGeek.ca. Bandsintown.com. Canoe.com Entertainment. CanoeMuseum.ca Events Annual Events Music in the Museum. Concertful.com Area Canada Toronto. Songkick.com Metro Areas. StubHub.ca. TheCoast.ca Halifax Event Search. Ticketmaster.ca. Toronto.com Things to Do Music. TorontoMusicListings.com. VancouverZone.com Entertainment. TotoCanada.ca Live Music Concerts Toronto.